Hey guys, Sylvester Stallone really embodied the classic 1980s action hero. Tan, ripped, muscular, and overall just tough looking. I'd say his first radical transformation took place between Rocky 2 and Rocky 3. So in today's video, I want to talk about his crazy extreme diet and training and the body that he built for Rocky 3. By the way, make sure to stay until the end because I know this kind of video is bound to generate a sort of comment. And it's the kind of comment that I want to completely and preemptively destroy. There should be no reason for this type of comment. I think it's unjustified. Also, make sure to smash that like button, subscribe to the channel if you're not yet subscribed, and share this video with all your Rocky and Stallone friends out there. Rocky 3 was released on May 28, 1982 and was supposed to be the final film in the Rocky series. Stallone had intended the Rocky series to be a trilogy, but lucky for us fans that was not the case. In fact, there's a good chance we may still even get a new Rocky film beyond 2020. Make sure to check out my video on upcoming Sylvester Stallone films in 2020 and beyond for more info on that, linked in the description below. When Rocky 3 was released, Stallone would have been 35 years old. The movie was filmed between May and August of 1981, so that would have made Stallone 34 and 35 years old while filming, since his birthday is in July. There are varying reports on his height. I believe he claims 5'10", though some people think he may only be 5'7". I'd personally guess at least 5'9". As far as his weight goes, in Rocky 3, Stallone was the lightest he's ever been in any of the Rocky films, weighing a gaunt 161 pounds. But he was also the leanest he's ever been in a Rocky film. In fact, according to Stallone, he claims he got his body fat percentage down to 2.8%, at least according to his 2005 book Sly Moves. More recently, in a 2017 Instagram post, he claimed 2.9%. Either way, that's still sub 3%. Now, as far as how accurate that number is, it's hard to say, as he didn't disclose the way in which it was measured. Since he was working out with Franco Columbu at the time, my best guess would be that perhaps Franco used the fat calipers on him. But even that method is not without its flaws, because depending on the fat caliper itself, and of course how and where it was used in its measurement, typically anywhere between 3 to 9 sites, there's bound to be some level of error involved. In fact, hydrostatic weighting, which is considered the gold standard of body composition assessment, still leaves a margin of error between 2 to 3%. So you can imagine the fat calipers would likely leave a similar if not greater margin of error. Perhaps the only way they get to the bottom of this mystery would be with Greg Doucette's eagle eye for estimating body fat percentage. However, if we go by that, the number's not bound to be nearly as impressive at sub 3%, since Greg typically thinks people are way fatter than they think. Let me know in the comment section, by the way, what you think Stallone's body fat percentage was in Rocky 3. But regardless of the number, what's more important is how Stallone would actually look without his shirt on in the movie. And going by that measure, Stallone was very impressive in Rocky 3. Now we have to keep in mind he's going to look slightly different over the course of the film since it was shot over a 3-month period. For example, I'll fluctuate 5 pounds just throughout the course of a day, sometimes looking sharp and then a little bloated, which is normal, and I'm sure several of you have similar fluctuations yourself. So you can imagine there's bound to be even greater fluctuation for Stallone over the course of 3 months of shooting. We also have to factor in the lighting. I'd say he looked most impressive during the final fight against Clubber Lang at the end of the movie, which makes sense since his character has just finished preparing and going through months of extensive training. Stallone would obviously want the character of Rocky to showcase that, and he showcases it quite well. There's peak definition, he's got the striations, he's sinewy, he's got the tan, the oil, the sweat. The lighting really makes his muscles pop even during the final fight, even though he was only in the 160s. Because they used a lot of close-ups during the filming of the boxing scenes in the Rocky movies, there were a few things that Stallone and his trainer Franco Columbu wanted to focus on, specifically for the Rocky movies and not the Rambo movies. Franco said, for Rocky, Sly wanted a lot of stuff in the shoulders and forearms so that when the camera came in it would look really big, so we did a lot of work on his upper pecs. By the way, Franco and Stallone met all the way back in 1977 when Sly came into Franco's office as a chiropractic client. They would begin training together the following year, 1978, for Rocky 2, which was filmed between October of 1978 to January of 79. Following that, Franco would continue to help train Stallone for Rocky 3 and 4, as well as Rambo First Blood Part 2 and at least partially for Rambo 3. Now it should be noted that at least for Rocky 3, Stallone put a much bigger emphasis on definition over size. Stallone said, I wanted to look like Tarzan, sleek, tight, almost cat-like. I wanted to forget the bulk and go for well-developed muscles. And this is where the extreme diet and training would come in. As far as Stallone's diet for Rocky 3 goes, he was pretty restrictive and pretty extreme. He lost 30 pounds in 10 months and took his body fat from 14% down to low single digits during the process. He said during the period he only ate small portions of oatmeal cookies made with brown rice and a couple of scoops of tuna. Stallone says, one thing I've always done is that I like to eat a lot of easily digestible proteins and steer myself clear of stuff which I know is going to be hard for my gut to handle, such as red meat. To keep his energy up, he drank up to 25 cups of coffee a day with honey. It seems like the only way he could have gotten through his grueling training routine, which I'll talk about next, is if he had enough honey in all of that coffee. 1 tablespoon alone has roughly 64 calories, around 16 grams of carbs, so depending on how much he put in each cup of coffee, that definitely at least could add up. It's hard to say how many so-called cheat days he had during this time, but he does recall at least having attempted one. In his book Sly Moves, he talks about the time that Mr. T put the thought and idea of ice cream in his head after they'd been filming their fight scene all week long. As soon as filming wrapped at 5 o'clock on Friday, both he and Mr. T raced to the set's trailer, ripped open the freezer, but to their dismay, there was no vanilla, no chocolate, not even strawberry ice cream, rather a half-defrosted container of some green something like mint chip. Their evening was ruined. You could say Stallone was hungry in more ways than one during Rocky III. Remember, Rocky III was all about getting that hunger back, the eye of the tiger.
You had that eye of the tiger, man, the edge. And now you gotta get it back.
This coincided with Stallone's real life, and he incorporated that into the story of Rocky III, which he said was even more personal than the 2 prior Rocky films. He said he let success get to his head, just like it did to the character Rocky within the film. That he needed to strip away all the gloss and psychologically go back to the beginning. There's an animal survival instinct that kicks in where you don't want to lose what you have.
The truth is, I don't want to lose what I got. In the beginning, I didn't care about what happened to me. I go in the ring, I get busted up, I didn't care. But now there's you, there's the kid. I don't want to lose what I got.
In real life, Stallone changed his attitude over success.
I would have realized that success is a gift rather than a permanent state of life, and treated it a little bit more with respect. I just flaunted it.
Stallone was also busy directing the film at the time, and the picture he posted on Instagram in 2017 showing him upside down doing a handstand was essentially to get some blood back in his head between rounds when he wasn't directing, so he could carry on with the complicated fight choreography. He said he'd get so lightheaded and exhausted. I'm sure that severely restricted diet must have caused some brain fog. Not only that, he didn't really sleep a whole lot either during that period. Partly because of his excessive training regimen, he became obsessed with working out. He said sometimes even at night during a movie or dinner party, he'd drive home to work out, no matter what time it was, 1 or even 2 o'clock in the morning. As far as the training itself goes, he brought Franco Colombo on full-time to be his trainer, and Franco treated it as if Stallone were training for the Mr. Olympia contest, much in the same way that Franco and Arnold used to train when they competed in bodybuilding. Stallone did a hardcore weightlifting program consisting of AM and PM workouts. The key difference in Rocky III is that Stallone added more conditioning work. The training was 6 days a week and as follows. Stallone would start off his morning with a 3-mile run, do 15 rounds of sparring, spend 2 hours in the weight room, perform a 1,000-rep circuit for abs and jump rope for 30 minutes. It would be eat, nap, start again. In the afternoon, he'd go on another run, perform more heavy lifting, then finish the day off with a long swim. Stallone said, "Man, back in those days, I would do literally anything and everything to burn more fat." He was highly competitive with Arnold Schwarzenegger at the time, as they were the 2 biggest action stars. Knowing that he couldn't compete with Arnold's muscular size, I'm sure he was extra motivated to beat him at the next best thing, leanness and conditioning. Franco said, "Training was never a problem. Sly was very competitive and easy for me to motivate." Here's his lifting routine, by the way. He takes Sundays off to recover, but go ahead and pause the video to get an idea what he did Monday through Saturday. As far as abs go, that 1,000-rep circuit was pretty insane. It would consist of lying leg raises, ab crunches, side leg raises, and dumbbell side bends. Franco said, "Sometimes I'd joke and say, let's do 3 more sets, but Sly would just immediately agree and do them." That joke kind of backfired on Franco there. Overall, I would say Stallone severely overtrained, which he's admitted himself, but this was actually an amazing example of how your body can adapt. A biological living organism is not always going to make sense. Calories in, calories out may work on paper, but there's a baseline, a set weight your body is generally going to want to keep, barring any illness, of course. Why do you think so many people who go on a diet hit a plateau? It's not so simple, it's not so black and white, nothing is. The amount of resistance training Stallone did force his body to want to maintain a certain amount of muscle on that severely calorie-restricted diet. Of course, feeding it that tuna would have helped a great deal as well, and I bet that honey in his coffee probably helped more than he realized. Stallone says, although he looked good on the outside, it was really dangerous. But he wanted the movie to be about change, how people have to adapt to challenges because if they don't, they will be conquered. He always believed that adaptation is a key to survival, and that's what Rocky III was all about. Now, I'm a big proponent of natural bodybuilding, natural fitness, and while I do believe Stallone was natural during Rocky III, obviously later on, maybe Rambo 3, I'd say he didn't necessarily look natural anymore. He said in 1987, when he was training for Rambo 3, he used to take an amino acid that's nearly as strong as anabolic steroids. It's about 15 times more powerful than the typical amino acid, he said. He's probably referring to growth hormone. Growth hormone is a 191 amino acid single chain polypeptide. And of course in 2007, there was that whole story from Australia about him being fined for importing human growth hormone. As he got older, it makes sense he'd be going to a life extension clinic clinic, most likely to get testosterone replacement therapy as well as growth hormone, prescribed by a doctor, looked after by a doctor, so doing it the safe, smart way. Now, the only reason I bring this up because I know in the comments section someone is going to attribute his physique primarily to steroids or some other performance enhancing drug. Now, obviously PEDs work, otherwise nobody would take them. With that said, I think it's very unfair and insulting for someone to discount all the consistent hard work Stallone put in at the gym. The only thing those PEDs do is throw gasoline on a fire, so they're going to amplify results, but with that said, I've seen plenty of guys and girls in the decades I've been training at the gym who use them, and quite frankly, they look like crap. Now, they look like bigger, more muscular pieces of crap, but they still look like crap. They're usually bloated and oily and have a lot of the negative side effects associated with it. Now, with that said, I've also seen people who actually know what they're doing with the proper diet, the proper training, and then they add those substances on top of it, and it's no shock that they actually look really good. They're really impressive, but they're few and far between. So in general, you can't just look like Stallone in the Rocky and Rambo movies by taking something. It's not that easy. But it seems like people in general just have a delicate ego where they need to make themselves feel better by putting someone else down and discounting their hard work because they themselves are not willing to put in that hard work. Now, I don't know for a fact, but I'm pretty sure he was natural in Rocky 3. I'm just speculating here. But I think he was natural, like I mentioned. And if he wasn't, he wasn't. At the end of the day, that doesn't mean somebody else can't achieve that Rocky 3 physique naturally. Of course, you're not going to look like Arnold Schwarzenegger in the Mr. Olympia competition all natural. But for looking like Stallone in Rocky 3, sure, why not? Though I would advise going against the dietary and training extremes he used to get there. And just one last thing to drive this point home a little further and hopefully put the nail in the coffin. I myself have been accused of using steroids or TRT, and this goes all the way back when I was in high school, when I was 16 years old. Now let's put something in perspective. I'm 5'9". I have an average size frame. I like to say I'm kind of in that group of, Sylvester Stallone, Jean-Claude Van Damme, Wesley Snipes, all have that just normal average size guy's frame. I'm sure we would all wish we had a larger frame to work with, like Arnold Schwarzenegger or Dolph Lundgren or Michael J. White, but it is what it is. We use what we have, we make the best of it. And guys that are smaller, I'm sure wish they were probably in the Van Damme, Stallone, and Snipes camp. But regardless, use what you have. So I'm 5'9", 185 pounds, been lifting consistently for 25 years. Got the bulk of my gains, at least muscular size, in the first 3 years. Now, if you're training consistently and smart, you're probably going to do that naturally. You'll still keep making gains and refinements, but they do slow down quite a bit and they do taper off after you build a decent amount of size naturally. But if you don't think a guy with an average size build can be lean and muscular in the 180s, I don't know what to tell you. Other than I'd hate to see how low you set the bar in other areas of your life. Because trust me, it's very achievable, it's very doable, but the one thing it's not easy. But if you're willing to put in the work consistently, day in and day out, month in and month out, year in and year out, it is a lifestyle, you're going to get those kind of results. So whether Stallone took something for Rocky 3, which I doubt, whether he took something for Rocky 4, which I also doubt, whether he took something for Rambo 3, there's a much better chance. But regardless, you can't discount this man's dedication and hard work that he consistently put in. It's just not fair. If he wanted to throw gasoline on that so-called fire, so be it. But he still had to build and maintain that fire in the first place. Anyway, let me know in the comments section below what you guys think about Stallone's crazy diet and training for Rocky 3. And also, what's your favorite Sylvester Stallone physique?